Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Monday, the 23rd of December. I'm Stephen Ridgway. There has been a noticeable increase in the number of attacks against security researchers in order to install malware. In this particular campaign, they're aiming to steal WordPress credentials. So the groups targeted include red teamers, penetration testers, and researchers, which is kind of unsurprising, I guess, because if you're working in that space, you've undoubtedly got access to all sorts of things. Malware, once installed, periodically activates, and it's collecting the usual sort of stuff: SSH keys, command line histories, exfiltrating information to the likes of Dropbox or File.io or whatever it may be. Excuse me. If you work in that particular space, just remain vigilant. Because you work in cyber doesn't mean to say that you are necessarily immune to these things. Keep on top of it, please, guys. Badbox botnet has been seen to be growing. It is recently 160,000 devices, noticeably Yandex smart TVs and Hisense smartphones, have been seen to be part of this particular botnet. The way that's been discovered is by BitSight sinkholing a Badbox domain and looking at what's tried to connect to it. It is, as always, something to be careful of. IoT devices, smart TVs, and so on and so forth are much harder, I think, as a user to keep on top of. The concept of update your phone, update your laptop is it's a fairly well-known concept. Update your TV is probably not in the forefront of quite so many people's minds, definitely one to think about. But they are increasingly, these internet connected devices are increasingly used in very substantial botnets. So again, if you've got internet connected devices, make sure they're up to date. Also think, when you're buying these devices, how likely are you to get security patches? Looked at cheap Chinese webcams, internet-based security cams. Two things is: one is, I've never seen any of them ever actually update anything. If you go to tell them to check for updates, they always come back saying yes, running the latest version. And secondly, they send all your data out to servers in those ones, anyway, to servers in China, to which you connect in order to see what's going on the camera. So, very interesting. Whole IoT thing is an interesting space. However, this particular botnet it is now known that if you use Yandex TVs or Hisense smartphones, it is doing the rounds. And then finally from me today, it has become apparent that AMD systems are vulnerable to memory attacks when running large virtualized environments. So this is an issue on vulnerability on AMD chips. So we're talking here about environments that run large server farms, cloud, basically the underlying hardware behind cloud environments, may well have these things. There is an expectation, an assumption, I think, from most users of cloud-based services that the physical tin is reasonably secure and that there aren't simple vulnerabilities at that level. Also, that your particular virtual environment is isolated and encrypted and held away from other people's environments. Well, it appears that that is not, or is still not the case. I mean, I've been tracking this going back to 2013, when the cloud was a much more exciting place than it is at the moment. And I was working for a financial organization that decided not to go substantially cloud-based at that point, because when you really dug into how do any of the providers of cloud services actually secure their services in the back end, in those days, you discovered all sorts of nasties, like Microsoft didn't encrypt anything. In the background, encryption was only, yes, they would use encryption connecting to their data centers, but once you were in there, nothing was encrypted at all. Nothing in transit around the data center, nothing on the servers, so on and so forth. They didn't want to talk about this stuff. It took a lot of digging to get there. And there was also a concern that it may in the future be possible to hop from one virtual server to another, or one virtual environment to another, via the underlying hardware. I think for the infrastructure guys, and I kind of had sympathy with them. Some infrastructure guys, well, there's no evidence that that's ever been done. It's a very theoretical vulnerability. Subsequently been proved that the security teams, the security architecture team, were right in that sense, that these vulnerabilities have been found. Well, this is a particular variation on that, that basically involves a modicum of hardware, as in a Raspberry Pi and a DIMM socket. If then applied to the hardware, the server can be tricked into then writing to the spoofed memory chip, the non-existent spoofed memory chip, which then gives the attacker the ability to read that memory. So makes for interesting reading if you're interested in this space, and I think it does it's a good reminder that despite what people were thinking even 3 or 4 years ago around, well, the cloud is a safer place to be, it's actually not. I think the cloud is just an environment where you don't really understand the threat landscape properly. I expect a lot more of this sort of stuff goes on than we're aware of, and I suspect a lot of that is our own nation state governments snooping on us. So, there we are. Okay, that's all from me for today. Hope you have a